سیاه، سرخ و سبز، این سه رنگ شکوهمند برای هر افغان معنی رفیع و بلند دارد و ممثل تاریخ، هویت ملی، فرهنگ و افتخارات حاصل از وطن دوستی، شهامت، فداکاری و سلحشوری است. بیرق ما نماد همبستگی و یادآور وحدت و انسجام ملی ماست. ما با هر پیروزی و موفقیت آن را بلند می کنیم و بر آن بوسه می زنیم. ما در هر مناسبت ملی و بین المللی بیرق شکوهمندمان را به عنوان نمادی از هویت، تدین و ارق ملی مورد استفاده قرار داده ایم که اعتماد به نفس، غرور و عزت را برای افغانها به ارمغان آورده است. کشورمان در طی چند دهه اخیر صحنه تغییرات گسترده نظام‌های حکومتی بوده و بیرق‌های ملی نیز همگام با دیگرگونی حاکمیت‌ها تغییر کرده است، به طوری که بیرق افغانستان یکی از متغیرترین بیرق‌های جهان بوده است. قدامت استفاده از بیرق در افغانستان به 5000 سال می رسد. و اما بیرق کنونی افغانستان با حاکمترین و پذیراترین رنگ ها مرکب است از 3 قطعه با رنگ های سیاه، سرخ و سبز که به صورت عمودی به اندازه های مساوی از چپ به راست در کنار هم واقع شده است. عرض هر رنگ برابر نصف طول آن است و در وسط آن نشان ملی افغانستان قرار دارد. رنگ سیاه حاکی از رنج، ظلمت و تهاجم بیگانگان به خطه عظیم ماست. رنگ سرخ نشانه انقلاب، شجاعت، قدرت، شهامت و فداکاری و از خودگذاری مردم دلیر ماست. رنگ سبز نشانه امنیت، امید و جوانی، سرسبزی، آرامش و انتظار است. نشان ملی افغانستان متشکل است از محراب و منبر که به رنگ سفید و در 2 گوشه آن 2 بیرق و در قسمت فوقانی آن کلمه مبارک لا اله الا الله محمد رسول الله و الله اکبر و اشعه خورشید در حال طلوع است. در قسمت تحتانی آن تاریخ 1298 هجری شمسی یعنی سال استرداد استقلال کشور و کلمه افغانستان جا داشته و از 2 طرف با خوشه های گندم احاطه شده است. اندازه این نشان ملی طور روی بیرق ترسیم شده است که قطر آن برابر با نصف عرض کل بیرق بوده و گوشه های از خوشه گندم بر روی رنگ های سیاه سبز نیز کشیده شده است. بیرق کشورمان بالاترین نشان هویت ملی و تداعیگر وطن پرستی و صلح‌خواهی ماست و نشان می دهد که با هر گونه جنگ و دشمنی مخالفیم. بیرق افغانستان عزیز بیان کننده آرمان‌ها و مطالبات ملت عظیم و با افتخار است که زیر سایه آن به قیمت خون خویش از وطن حفاظت کرده و آن را آزاد نگه داشتند. اما اقوام افغانستان دور از هر گونه تفرقه باید زیر سایه یک بیرق در چهارچوب قانون اساسی اهداف و معنویات نظام را پیگیر باشند. احترام نسبت به بیرق شکوهمند کشور باعث نقش برآب شدن اهداف پلید دشمنان ماست. پس بیایید بیرقمان را با مشخصات معین آن مطابق به قانون اساسی کشور.
I'm going to provide a briefest of introductions to the members of IDSA. Dr. Hanif, Mr. Hanif Atmar doesn't need an introduction, but he's quite a remarkable politician by the standards of South Asia. When I arrived in Afghanistan, in Kabul, in January 2008, I called on him, one of the first ministers that I called on, because we were heavily invested in the education sector. And then Mr. Atmar was education minister, but he already came to that position with a formidable reputation, because, believe it or not, as a very young person, in 2002 he had a long stint as Minister for Rural Development, and some of the most unique community development decentralized programs was run by that ministry, which became a model for replication in many other conflict-ridden and not conflict-ridden developing countries and least developed countries in the world. And we got inspired by what we saw, and we tailored our program in Afghanistan to conform to the way the programs were implemented by local communities and local authorities. And so we called it the small development projects, which were uniquely very small, less than $2 million worth, small schools, clinics, solar electrification of an institution, typically an educational institution or a training institution for teachers in remote areas. And so we were working with Mr. Hanif Atmar from the start of the present experiment in Afghanistan. And thereafter, for much of my tenure there, he was the Interior Minister. And he is one of those persons dealing with a very difficult internal and national security problem in Afghanistan, acutely conscious that the non-traditional challenges of security and the need to move away from the singularity of a military response by itself. He knows that terrorism and insurgency is a complex phenomena and cannot be countered just with military force. And so in the many challenges that his country has, Afghanistan has, there could be a few persons as gifted as Mr. Atmar in helping his nation cope with them. I now give him the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Defense Minister Parikar Sahib, Ambassador Prasad, a good friend of Afghanistan and my very good friend, Janab Hussain Sheikh al-Islam Sahib, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, let me thank Ambassador Prasad for his kind invitation for me to attend this important conference. It's an honor to be one of the speakers at a conference that is dealing with the most defining challenge of our time: security and counterterrorism. Let me congratulate Ambassador Prasad, his colleagues, and the Indian government for creating this forum, a genuine and effective forum, not just for our region, but also for the global community, to hold honest and open discussions about the threats to our societies, our nations, and the ways in which we can get together to neutralize these threats. It's all the more important that this is held in India because of its international credentials to respect norms and our shared values. It gives us a level of comfort to hold those discussions in good faith and with the understanding that they will be translated into good policies. Colleagues, let me also take this opportunity to thank the incredible India, its great people, and its government for its strong friendship, generous support, and reliable partnership with Afghanistan. I know, Ambassador, I personally am grateful to you for the way you contributed to strengthen this partnership. I'm honored to have my honorable colleague, Defense Minister here, who's been a key leader to continue to contribute to the friendship of the two nations. Just a few months ago, our president was here, I suppose right in this room, when he thanked every Indian for his or her $1 contribution to Afghanistan. Well, first of all, $1 billion from India as a contribution to rebuild Afghanistan is extremely important. It's quite a lot of money. But more than that, it represents the goodwill of an honorable nation that honors friendship and values solidarity with a nation like Afghanistan that has been the frontline country against our common enemies and threats. So thank you for all of that. Honorable Minister, I have a speech that may be rather long, so I do understand the daily pressing priorities of a security minister. Please feel free whenever you decide to leave. I won't mind, but I must say that does not apply to everybody else in the room. I was thinking of speaking only about Afghanistan today because it's a context that is extremely important and relevant to the themes of this conference, and more importantly, to the security of Asia, our region, and the global community. And I was hoping to offer a few perspectives. But before I do that, the first question I would like to answer is, why does Afghanistan matter? First of all, we share a region with Pakistan and other neighboring countries that has had the highest concentration of organized terrorists anywhere in the world. According to known statistics, 20 out of 98 US designated terrorist organizations are operating in that region. They're operating there, not all of them with the Afghan objectives alone. They have goals beyond Afghanistan. Why is Afghanistan important for them? It's because that is the place they see as a breeding ground, as a sanctuary, where they launched, or from where they launched, the 9/11 attack. And that is the place where they would like to do the same thing again. For that reason, you have this highest concentration of the world's most lethal terrorist organizations. What enables them to be there? It's proven sanctuaries for them. It's the symbiotic relation that they have with state and non-state actors. And it's this critical support and enabling infrastructure that they enjoy. success in Afghanistan against terrorism is vitally important for the security of our region and global community. Unfortunately, the reverse is also true. Failure in Afghanistan is the failure of the region and the global community in their own effort to secure their nations. There are lessons to be learned from Afghanistan experience. There are many. I wouldn't provide an exhaustive list of such lessons, but there's one that I would definitely highlight, and that is we as the region have a common enemy now, but unfortunately we do not have a common strategy to defeat it. In this context, let me offer 4 key points to summarize our perspectives to the debate that we are going to have over the coming 2 days. The first point: terrorism is morphing and adapting in this region to pursue its goals beyond Afghanistan. Since 9/11, they have established a distinctive ecology, system, and industry. We are no longer talking about lone wolf or a violent terrorist organization. There is a symbiotic axis of 3 critical actors. First, violent extremists. Second, criminal economics. And third, state sponsorship of terrorism. Friends, we are faced by this symbiotic axis of 3 enemies of humanity that have come together to threaten security of every nation in this region and by extension the world community. How do they play out in Afghanistan? Let me focus first on the violent groups. There are 4 groups of extremist terrorist organizations that we continue to fight. Group 1 includes the Afghan terrorists, including Taliban and the Haqqani network. We were successfully able to negotiate a peace agreement with a 3rd group, the Hizb Islami. Second is the Pakistani terrorist groups, including the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The 3rd group of such networks are regional, and that includes the Islamic movement, so-called Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, the East Turkestan Islamic movement of China, Ansarullah and Jindullah. Finally, the 4th group is the one that is very well known and talked about, including Al-Qaeda and Daesh. But what is important about these groups, that they have 2 sets of relations that are symbiotic. First, among themselves, they need each other. They need Afghan terrorists in order to be able to come to Afghanistan. And the Afghan terrorists need them for finance, technology, and training. But they all need 2 other sets of relationships. One with rogue state elements that provide them sanctuaries, or at least tolerate them. And second, with criminal economic networks, including the drugs. Let's be fair about this assessment, colleagues. Sometimes we wonder whether their war is about politics or economics, or a combination of both. The drug industry and criminal economy produces such an amount of resources that they can easily use to finance both state and non-state actors to pursue terrorist goals. And there's also a personal accountability issue here. Operators involved in the drug industry may hardly listen to the policymakers. And these sorts of relationships actually makes it possible for them to sustain their operations. Considering these facts, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to try to dispel three important myths that are commonly held about terrorism and the war in Afghanistan. First, the first myth is, for those who argue that the war in Afghanistan is a civil war, it's not. It's a drug war, it's a violent terrorist war, and it's unfortunately undeclared state-to-state war. A combination of all of this can easily be demonstrated by the multiplicity of the actors on the ground sustaining this war. Second, the second myth is those who believe that the distinction between good and bad terrorists will bring them security and will enable them to pursue their goals without being affected themselves. We've seen this, that making such a distinction can actually change a perpetrator to a victim as well. Because such terrorist organizations are capable of morphing themselves into Frankenstein monsters, and they will come after their own masters. The third myth is associating such terrorism with Islam. It's absolutely untrue. Let me offer three reasons why this is unhelpful. First, technically associating terrorism with Islam is wrong because it will deprive us of a true understanding of what terrorism is and what it stands for. It is misleading. Second, ethically it is inappropriate to associate terrorism with Islam because it fails to understand, to appreciate the sacrifices that the Muslims are making in order to defeat terrorism and the suffering that the Muslims have had at the hands of the terrorists. No Muslim nation is losing more innocent lives to terrorism than Afghanistan. But collectively, the Muslim world is losing more people to terrorism than any other civilization. Third, politically, associating terrorism with Islam is unwise because there are extremist ideologies that has nothing to do with Islam. This understanding is important for shaping policies. The conference is about how to contribute to a policy environment in which sound judgment is exercised in identifying the threats and appropriate and effective strategies. With this understanding, we will be much better placed to shape both our counter-terrorism strategies and peace and reconciliation. This brings me to a second point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make. And that is the irony. Despite the international investment in counter-terrorism, terrorism is growing its capabilities and its presence in the Afghan-Pakistan region. Because they have sanctuaries, because they have financing, recruitment, training, and equipment facilities. In Afghanistan, we estimate their number between 40 to 45,000 terrorist soldiers that have been deployed in the region. 1/4 of them are foreigners. They are not from the region. And that makes it extremely difficult for us to decide who to make peace with and who to fight. We cannot make peace with these foreigners. They are not Afghans. And we will have to think of a different strategy together with you, because these foreigners are coming not just from the countries in the region, but also from the rest of the world. There has been a displacement effect. The operation by the Pakistani army called Zarb-e-Azm and the pressures on ISIL, Daesh, Al-Qaeda elsewhere in the Middle East have had displacement effect. That's why you have such a high concentration of these terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. As I said earlier, these networks have their individual goals to pursue. However, they have one thing in common, and that is the destruction of the state in Afghanistan, so that they can establish a sanctuary. But let me tell you, colleagues, that if you study these individual networks, there's hardly any country in this region that does not have an enemy among them. Al-Qaeda and Daesh will be the enemy of every one of us, not just the West, not just the United States. Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed is aimed to hurt India. Actors such as IMU and ATIM are planning to threaten China, Russia, and Central Asia. Well, there are Pakistani-based terrorist networks threatening Afghanistan and the rest of us, but TTP and its splinter groups are actually waging violence in Pakistan against innocent people. One thing we all need to acknowledge, we do not have any friend among them. If anything, every one of us have an enemy among them. It's important for our common understanding and common policy. For Afghanistan, it has been extremely costly. Over the past 14 months, we lost over 10,500 men and women, 25% of them civilians. Every day we are losing 28 Afghans to terrorism on average. If you combine it with the wounded. Every day we are losing 81 people on average. It's a very high cost. Despite that high cost, we are still holding our ground. And let me take this opportunity to thank the United States, our NATO partners, India, and our other regional partners, including China and Russia and Iran, for their continued support to this noble struggle. Some would argue that we have a stalemate, as our president responded. Yes, we do. But we are having that stalemate made with 1/10 of the international soldiers that we had between 2009 and 2014. So the Afghans, those who have been trained with your tax money and successfully, are now holding their ground successfully. However, my third point is worrying, that the inadequacy of regional response to terrorism is actually making the challenge worse. Our regional response at best is inadequate. Why? Over the past 2 years, we have engaged all of our regional partners. And unfortunately, much to our disappointment, we are seeing a continued breakdown of regional consensus over terrorism. Whatever the reasons, some would cite their rivalries, disputes, and incompatible interests strategically with global actors and try to translate that into their policies in Afghanistan and the region. Frankly speaking, there is no justification for that. Because at the end, every one of us will lose. But what are these breaking consensus issues? The first one is that we all decided since 9/11 that there shouldn't be a distinction between good and bad terrorists. They're all terrorists, they're all bad. But unfortunately, recently, much to our disappointment, there are actors who are trying to justify that maybe this terrorist can be a partner against that terrorist. And normally that terrorist that they want to make a partner is the Afghan Taliban and the Haqqani network, or the LAT and Jaish-e-Mohammed. We engaged these friends and said, number one, you do not have empirical evidence that the Taliban are the enemies of Daesh, because they are mutating. Because the majority of Daesh in Afghanistan today are either Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or Afghan Taliban. And number two, anything you give them, they will use against us. And who are we to you? A friend or an enemy? We consider ourselves a friend. So the breakdown of that consensus is to the detriment of not just Afghanistan, but the entire region. One lesson that we have to all learn: using a Frankenstein against another enemy is dangerous, and for sure it's going to come after its master. Second breakdown in that consensus is the centrality of state-to-state relations for counterterrorism and cooperation. There are actors in our region who are trying to use non-state actors in pursuit of their national security interests. That is wrong. There's no substitute to a state-to-state effective cooperation. And finally, the third point is when states decide that they want to have security for themselves no matter what happens to the others. That is wrong. We can either be collectively secure or we can be collectively insecure. We have to decide. Finally, my fourth point relates to the lesson that I suggested right at the beginning, that from Afghanistan, what we have learned painfully is that we as South Asia, Central Asia, Asia, and the global community have all a common enemy, but we do not have a common strategy to defeat it. And this is the only way to defeat that enemy. I'm not going to provide an exhaustive list of elements of how that strategy should be shaped and what it should contain, but let me offer a few key points which need to be considered in developing that strategy. First, it's going to be a generational challenge. We cannot defeat terrorism in a year or two, or in 10 years planning every time for 1 year. We need to plan for decades. That enemy is not going to go away that soon. Second, we have to have, considering the experience from our region, action at 4 levels: global, Islamic world, regional, and national. And we have to be able to coordinate our diplomatic, security, political, and developmental assets in order to have action at 4 levels. What should we aim at when we are to develop a strategy at the 4 levels? The first objective should be to end state sponsorship of terrorism. There's no other way to defeat terrorism unless we end its sponsorship. There are states that support terrorism and there are elements within states. We often hear from the international community it's difficult to designate a state as sponsor of terrorism because there are many implications. Well, first, it's disappointing that we do not have that courage. Second, even if we do not have that courage to designate a state, let's designate individuals that are sponsoring terrorism and hiding behind the states. International accountability will have to. It's been long that it has gone beyond just states and it's holding individuals accountable on human rights, but let's hold them accountable on their support for terrorism, no matter which states they are working for. Second, it has to be a coordinated response of the intelligence, military, diplomatic, to remove sanctuaries and the support infrastructure, including financing, training, recruitment, and equipment. Third level is national action. We agree with those who believe that in addition to doing things about terrorist organizations, we also need to address the internal dynamics, the fertile ground for terrorism. And there are three things from our experience, colleagues, that matter the most: improving governance, addressing poverty, and improving educational systems, among the many other priorities. These will have immediate and decisive impact on terrorism. Our current engagement against terrorism with the United States and NATO will definitely require additional regional help. Finally, peace and reconciliation. Again, from the Afghan experience. Afghan peace and reconciliation will be the most effective counterterrorism strategy in the region and beyond the region. If you remove the Afghan terrorists away from the regional and global terrorists, they will not have a sanctuary in that region. So therefore, peace and reconciliation legitimately pursued with the Afghans will have an immediate impact on regional and global terrorism. With this, colleagues, I did warn you that it's going to be a long speech, but I hope I have contributed a little bit. Thank you so much.
Excellency. Two related questions. You, towards the end of your presentation, spoke about the need for greater regional support for your engagement with NATO, and I was wondering if you could expand on that. Are you looking for greater financial commitment from Afghanistan's neighbors, or for actual troop commitments from your neighbors? What exactly do you have in mind over the long term? And secondly, there's been considerable controversy in the Afghan and regional press over support from Russia and other regional other neighbors of Afghanistan for elements in the Taliban, which you alluded to in your presentation. I was wondering if you could share a little bit on where your conversations with these states on seizing support, which you alluded to, have gone in recent weeks, whether you've had any success in persuading them to end this support.
Thank you. From the end.
Thank you, sir. Commander Batra sir, it's a very two small things. So you have discussed little bit terrorism from both Islam and Muslim. Unless you bring in women, I don't think you'll find an end to terrorism. Point one. Point two, again, you have distance. How can you distance poverty from governance without tackling corruption? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for very important questions. I'll try to go directly to some of the points I made earlier. First of all, let me clarify one thing, that we consider Russia and more importantly Iran and China as friends of Afghanistan. We have had honest and effective dialogue with them. They have been supporting Afghanistan. They clearly say that the government of Afghanistan is legitimate and they will continue to support it, but they will still maintain contacts with Taliban. Our position is, number one, friends, let's maintain a level of transparency. And number two, we would welcome if you use your contacts for peace and not for war. And for peace, we would welcome their influence in whatever way they have. That dialogue is held systematically with them, and we would very much like to involve not just the United States but also India in that dialogue. It is not going to affect just Afghanistan. It is going to affect the entire region, because the Afghan Taliban and the Haqqanis, wherever they have sanctuaries, they are going to provide sanctuaries to the other 20 terrorist organizations that will pose the threat even to the same nations that we are talking to. So for that reason, we strongly believe that we have a strong foundation of partnership with these countries, and this dialogue will produce a good result. And we warn them, will continue to warn them, that any assistance to the Taliban or the Haqqanis will not be seen as a gesture of friendship towards us. And they are assuring us that this is not the case. All they want to do is to facilitate peace in Afghanistan, and second, a counter-response to Daesh. There we disagree. We say the best response to Daesh is state-to-state relations and cooperation. You cannot get it from non-state actors, especially the ones who do not have a track record of human rights and behaving not like a terrorist. They were terrorists, so don't expect a terrorist to be taking on another terrorist. On the Haqqanis and the rest, colleagues, I'll be very frank with you. Recently, we've seen Pakistan that has fallen victim to terrorism as well. The innocent children of our Pakistani brothers and sisters killed in Peshawar, and the shrine attacked in Lahore, in Sindh, and marketplace attacked in Lahore, we condemn those terrorist acts and we have solidarity with victims. But where we disagree is the following. We say no distinction between good and bad terrorists. The Pakistanis have given us a list of 76 terrorists that they believe are hiding in ungoverned spaces in Afghanistan. We said fine, we accept the list. But we submitted a list to them of 86 people and 32 training centers of the terrorists and said, look my friend, there's only one way for us to go ahead. You act on our list, we will act on your list. And we need to have a third party to verify. We are ready to do that, are you? That was the proposal we've put on the table. I really hope that all of us will be ready to have a third party verification in our efforts against terrorism. We do not expect any troops contributions from our regional partners at this point. With India it's different. We've asked them for support in many ways, but when it comes to the larger region, that is not what we are asking for. We are asking for the followings. Number one, the best way to fight terrorism is through state-to-state relations and support the Afghan National Security Force. Number two, use all your diplomatic, security and development assets to produce a regional strategy against terrorism, to end the sanctuaries and their financing and support infrastructure. Of course, there are details. There are many, many details that will have to be handled bilaterally with them. Sir, you're absolutely right on the role of women, not just in good governance and poverty reduction, but also counter-terrorism. Any failure of institutionalizing, empowering that role will be a failure with all of the above. So therefore, the Afghan political leadership, the state and our civil society are fully committed to empowering our women. It comes from our empirical evidence that women's empowerment is going to be central to poverty reduction, peace and reconciliation, and good governance. Now, you're absolutely right that without good governance, you cannot have an impact on poverty. And corruption is the key enemy of good governance. We are extremely bitter and at the same time disappointed that over the past 1.5 decades, our efforts to eliminate corruption has not produced much result. And therefore, our president has embarked on a new strategy. And the strategy is no longer about software, it's also about the hardware response. Therefore, we've established a special police force, a special judicial system, including a special prosecutor, and an anti-corruption justice center, and they are going to deliver justice. And already I can cite one promising example, that on the Global Index of Transparency International, Afghanistan is making a progress, 40 points progress. Not much, but at least enough to suggest that there are early signs of progress if we sustain the effort. Thank you, sir.
So we are turning to this side, and you have a floor, sir. Yourself.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atmar, for that very useful presentation. I have three small questions. The first is, why is it that we use the phrase Afghan-owned and Afghan-led when it is neither in most cases? And why is it not Afghan government-owned and Afghan government-led? That's my first question. My second question is with regard to where are we in relation to the reconciliation process with the opposition groups in terms of various initiatives, Pugwash and the Russia-China initiative. In your eyes, where precisely are we, and are we making any headway? And my last question, I think, is the fundamental question that you have talked about, is on sanctuaries. Now, I think we are being diplomatic here. You mentioned the name Pakistan only once, although I know I'm sitting beside the former National Security Advisor of Pakistan, my friend Mr. Durrani. Why have we been unable or unwilling to address the question of sanctuaries when every American of any importance, from John Nicholson, the NATO commander, to every US Senator, John McCain, everybody says that you cannot win this war without addressing the sanctuaries. And we have lost, the Americans say, have lost thousands of soldiers because of these sanctuaries. So, surely your exchange of lists with Pakistan is not going to work. Otherwise, we would have been having a party by now. But that's not the case. So, in short, what is the way that you think that the question of sanctuaries, because once you do it, then maybe India can follow the lead.
Thank you, General Mehta. Sir, you've been such a draw that in the Asian Security Conference, normally we have enough seating capacity here, but we have some young scholars who are standing right at the back and they were flashing their hands, two of them. So we'll go to both of them one by one.
Mr. Atmar, right in the back. Just a clarification on your earlier question. You made a statement that we do not expect group contribution from our regional partners, but you also said with India it is different. So can you please clarify on that? Are you expecting or have you requested group contribution from India?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Atmar, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I would like to ask a few questions regarding the Afghan National Security Forces. In the recent times, we have seen a lot of press reports regarding the attrition rate among the ANSF, the force posturing and the operational capabilities as far as ANSF is concerned, and a lot of other issues that cripple those forces. So what plans are your government taking to strengthen the ANSF and also to strengthen the local governments, particularly the Afghan local police?
I'm not just drawing many people here, but I'm also drawing quite a lot of questions as well. Thank you for that. General Saib, you're absolutely right. The process of peace and reconciliation will have to be government-owned and Afghan government-led. And that is the terminology we are using. By Afghan-owned and Afghan-led terminology, we would not allow any actor to go to non-state actors for this purpose. It will have to be a straightforward interaction, dialogue and agreement with the government of Afghanistan if they want to have peace. Otherwise, they will be wasting their time, and that effort will not support peace. It will, unfortunately, lead to further violence. And for that reason, we are extremely careful with regional initiatives and global initiatives for peace and reconciliation. We say where the Afghan government, I'm not necessarily traditionally a government person, and I'm not going to actually protect the operating space for the government here. But this government is elected by the people of Afghanistan. So we represent their will, and if the government is not present there, any meeting on peace and reconciliation is not going to carry any legitimacy. And that was exactly our position on meetings in the region where the Afghan government was not present. We said you do not have legitimacy, and we will not see it as a friendly act. On Pagwash and other civil society and academic exercises, first of all, we respect them because we believe in the role of citizens and the role of civil society in the process, and we want them to have a space to operate. But at the same time, we are giving them advice. Do not have a substitute to a state-to-state relations, to a state-led peace and reconciliation process, because that will be counterproductive. Many of them understand, Pagwash doesn't, and we are hoping that they will understand that as well. On sanctuaries, General Saab, frankly speaking, I was kind of 11 when this war broke out, and I have had that question for that long, that sanctuaries existed for a very long time. I haven't had the answer as yet as to what justifies this and what can be achieved through maintaining sanctuaries for the most dreadful and cruel actors humanity has ever produced. Because from these sanctuaries, there are such cruel people coming out that they would go to a school and kill children individually and in cold blood. They did it in Peshawar, they did it in Kabul, and they do it elsewhere. So let's talk to see if we can address your fate, to get you out of this, because it is not going to be just an enemy to me, it's also an enemy to you. So you will have to be showing sound judgment in this. Our relations with India are different, not because of just the counter-terrorism dimension of it, it's in every dimension. In every dimension, this relationship is different, and we value it as a national treasure, and we will maintain it in that way. We will not be asking for troops from India. We will be definitely working with India as the most reliable partner, just like the United States and NATO in this respect. I'm not going to get into details of our security defense cooperation, but as I said, it will be a multidimensional partnership with India. To strengthen the Afghan National Security Forces, I must say that we've just finalized a 4-year roadmap for the National Security Forces with the help from our US partners as well as NATO. And this is going to be the key roadmap to bring a significant change in the process. We've learned some important lessons, and one of them is that our special forces are probably one of the best in the region, and we are going to rely on them to take the war to the enemy sanctuaries, wherever they may be. Thank you.
Thank you for those answers. I have deep apologies to all those who have shown hands. Two of the hands belong to my own friends from the Foreign Service, and I can take a private meeting from them outside the room.
سیاه، سرخ و سبز، این سه رنگ شکوهمند برای هر افغان معنی رفیع و بلند دارد و ممثل تاریخ، هویت ملی، فرهنگ و افتخارات حاصل از وطن دوستی، شهامت، فداکاری و سلحشوری است. بیرق ما نماد همبستگی و یادآور وحدت و انسجام ملی ماست. ما با هر پیروزی و موفقیت آن را بلند می کنیم و بر آن بوسه می زنیم. ما در هر مناسبت ملی و بین المللی بیرق شکوهمندمان را به عنوان نمادی از هویت، تدین و ارق ملی مورد استفاده قرار داده ایم که اعتماد به نفس و غرور و عزت را برای افغانها به ارمغان آورده است. کشورمان در طی چند دهه اخیر صحنه تغییرات گسترده نظام‌های حکومتی بوده و بیرق‌های ملی نیز همگام با دیگرگونی حاکمیت‌ها تغییر کرده است، به طوری که بیرق افغانستان یکی از متغیرترین بیرق‌های جهان بوده است. قدامت استفاده از بیرق در افغانستان به 5000 سال می رسد. و اما بیرق کنونی افغانستان با حاکمترین و پذیراترین رنگ‌ها مرکب است از 3 قطعه با رنگ‌های سیاه، سرخ و سبز که به صورت عمودی به اندازه‌های مساوی از چپ به راست در کنار هم واقع شده است. عرض هر رنگ برابر نصف طول آن است و در وسط آن نشان ملی افغانستان قرار دارد. رنگ سیاه حاکی از رنج، ظلمت و تهاجم بیگانگان به خطه عظیم ماست. رنگ سرخ نشانه انقلاب، شجاعت، قدرت، شهامت و فداکاری و از خودگذاری مردم دلیر ماست. رنگ سبز نشانه امنیت، امید و جوانی، سرسبزی، آرامش و انتظار است. نشان ملی افغانستان متشکل است از محراب و منبر که به رنگ سفید و در دو گوشه آن دو بیرق و در قسمت فوقانی آن کلمه مبارک لا اله الا الله محمد رسول الله و الله اکبر و اشعه خورشید در حال طلوع است. در قسمت تحتانی آن تاریخ 1298 هجری شمسی یعنی سال استرداد استقلال کشور و کلمه افغانستان جا داشته و از دو طرف با خوشه های گندم احاطه شده است. اندازه این نشان ملی طور روی بیرق ترسیم شده است که قطر آن برابر با نصف عرض کل بیرق بوده و گوشه های از خوشه گندم بر روی رنگ های سیاه سبز نیز کشیده شده است. بیرق کشورمان بالاترین نشان هویت ملی و تداعیگر وطن پرستی و صلح‌خواهی ماست و نشان می دهد که با هر گونه جنگ و دشمنی مخالفیم. بیرق افغانستان عزیز بیان کننده آرمان‌ها و مطالبات ملت عظیم و با افتخار است که زیر سایه آن به قیمت خون خویش از وطن حفاظت کرده و آن را آزاد نگه داشتند. اما اقوام افغانستان دور از هر گونه تفرقه باید زیر سایه یک بیرق در چهارچوب قانون اساسی اهداف و معنویات نظام را پیگیر باشند. احترام نسبت به بیرق شکوهمند کشور باعث نقش برآب شدن اهداف پلید دشمنان ماست. پس بیایید بیرقمان را با مشخصات معین آن مطابق به قانون اساسی کشور همیشه در اهتزاز نگه داریم.
वतन मोजान दे दा अफगानिस्तान दाज़मू ज़ेबा वतन दाज़मू लैला वतन दा वतन मोजान दे दा अफगानिस्तान दा वतन मोजान दे दा अफगानिस्तान दामो द बाबा वतन दामो द दादा वतन पमु बंदी दी ग्रांदे दा अफगानिस्तान पमु बंदी दी ग्रांदे दा अफगानिस्तान दाज़मू ज़ेबा वतन दाज़मू लैला वतन दा वतन मोजान दे दा अफगानिस्तान दा वतन मोजान दे दा अफगानिस्तान روخام دازم اشنا وطن در لمو شافا وطن زرگن پری روخام دے دا افغانستان زرگن پری روخام دے دا افغانستان دازم زیبا وطن دازم لیلا وطن دا وطن موزان دے دا افغانستان دا وطن موزان دے دا افغانستان